Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Georgia Bulldog fans coming out of the transfer portal as former Stanford tight end Benjamin Yurosek committing to the Georgia Bulldogs. And for the Georgia fans that were listening to the boys early January, we talked about Benjamin Yurosek being a target for Georgia. You guys know how I feel about Benjamin Yurosek. I truly think Ben Yurosek is one of the best tight ends in the country, and now he goes to an offense that not only is one of the best offenses in the country, uses that tight end position probably better than any other program across the country. I think this is a perfect fit, and I think I am very excited for what Ben Yurosek can do in that Georgia tight end room. That you take a look at the names in this room. Yes, you lose Brock Bowers. Many people probably going to assume this tight end room is going to take a massive dive. Oscar Delp looks to be a stud. You have a guy like Lawson Lucky, who I think is going to get a lot of playing time. You add Benjamin Yurosek. You add a guy like Jaden Riddell as a true freshman. Georgia's really turning into tight end U. And I'm extremely excited about Ben Yurosek. Want to talk about what Ben Yurosek brings to this Georgia offense, how I think Georgia is going to use a guy like Benjamin Yurosek. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it was a blast covering this Georgia program in the transfer portal. I think they made, again, not a ton of commitments for Georgia, but the quality of players that they have coming in through the transfer portal, in my mind, very exciting. It's been a blast for me to cover. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And that, without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with the career trajectory of Benjamin Yurosek, a guy that kind of bursted onto the scene in that 2021 year where he had 43 catches for almost 700 yards for a Stanford team that was decent in 2021. Now, I think why this is going to be a move that kind of flies under the radar, according to the national media, is that the last 2 years, yes, Benjamin Yurosek has still been a very good football player, but that Stanford offense, flat out stunk. There was not many good things happening in that Stanford offense. And again, when the good things were happening, it normally had to do with Ben Yurosek. And now he comes to a Georgia offense where they love to run 12 personnel. They love to use their tight ends in a variety of different ways. And that's where I love this fit, because Benjamin Yurosek can do a variety of different things for this Georgia offense. And I think it starts with his pass catching ability. This is a guy that, don't get it twisted, can inline block, but I truly think is a matchup nightmare working that middle of the field. He's too smooth. He's too athletic for linebackers to deal with him. And quite frankly, he's too big and too physical for safeties to deal with him. You look at the boxes that you want to check for that tight end position. That's exactly what you want. And you look at some of the things that he's done at his time at Stanford, over 100 catches for over 1,300 yards during his time at Stanford. Again, those numbers should be a lot higher if that Stanford offense did not flat out stink the last 2 years. Only 5 drops. You talk about one thing we look at for that tight end position, that's a must. You got to catch the football in traffic. You have to be reliable. And you look at how Georgia wants to use these tight ends when it's 3rd and 5. They're looking to guys like Brock Bowers or Oscar Delp to create separation and kind of be that safety blanket for the offense. And I think Benjamin Yurosek certainly can be that. Another thing that I absolutely love, during his targets, 69% completion percentage. And that's a number that I look at for tight ends and wide receivers, in the sense that when the quarterback is going to you and throwing you the football, is it working out? And for a 70% completion percentage for a tight end, it surely looks like Benjamin Yurosek is making it happen when he gets those targets. And then you go to the 2023 year, again, a Stanford offense that had really no identity, really no playmakers. It was Benjamin Yurosek. He got hurt for the second half of the year, but the first half of the year, they also gave him 11 carries. They were giving him, and I'm not going to comp him to Brock Bowers, because I truly think Brock Bowers is just kind of on a pedestal, kind of just different from a lot of tight ends that we've seen in the last 50 years. But Benjamin Yurosek on that Stanford team truly got the Brock Bowers treatment, where it's like, hey, this is our offensive playmaker. We're going to get him the football in any way possible, end around, screens. They were truly using Benjamin Yurosek as their pass catcher one in that Stanford offense, which excites me so much to see what he can do in a Georgia offense that has significantly better quarterback play, but more importantly, knows how to use tight ends. A couple things that I love after watching the film. And again, Benjamin Yurosek, a guy that I thought was going to be an NFL draft pick. So I kind of scouted him as a potential NFL prospect. Really, really smooth. And that's kind of what separates really good tight ends from just average tight ends. And you look at Brock Bowers, why he was so special, because the movement skills were just so good for that size. Benjamin Yurosek is also a very smooth mover, in and out of his breaks, creating separation on linebackers and safeties. He works the middle of the field extremely well. I mean, he's got a big body and a big catch radius. He's versatile. You'll see him in line. You'll see him at the slot. You'll see him at that H-back situation. Very good after the catch. And this is a guy that is a load to bring down. He's very fast for his size, but also just works through defensive backs. Like, defensive backs trying to tackle Benjamin Yurosek normally does not play out very well. He's reliable. He's a matchup nightmare. This is, in my mind, and I know the Georgia fans know how I feel if you guys have been listening for the last month. I truly think Benjamin Yurosek is in for a massive year for this Georgia offense. And you kind of take a look. Now, we're kind of assuming Georgia probably done in the transfer portal, although I'm not putting anything past Kirby Smart. What has been the priority for this Georgia program in the transfer portal? The way I look at it, it is we have an elite quarterback in Carson Beck. We got to get him the weapons for him to really put together that Heisman year. And you take a look at some of the best quarterbacks in the country, I think Georgia has one. And so I think Georgia now in the transfer portal was looking at, all right, we got to surround Carson Beck with phenomenal offensive skill. And it starts with the running game with Trevor Etienne. Again, one of the best running backs that was available in the portal. He's going to come in, be a monster for the Georgia Bulldogs. But then you take a look at some of the other guys that are getting in. Michael Jackson, a guy that I think has high upside. I don't know if he's an immediate starter for the Georgia Bulldogs. You have a guy like Colby Young, 6'5", 215, that true boundary receiver that we haven't really seen Georgia have in terms of the physicality and what he can do vertically down the field. And then you have a guy in London Humphreys, who, again, a little bit smaller than Colby Young, but has absolute burners, averaged over 20 yards per catch as a true freshman for Vanderbilt in 2023. The way I look at it, you bring in two guys in Colby Young and London Humphreys that can really put a lot of stress on opposing defenses vertically down the field. And what does that have to do with what I'm saying about Ben Yurosek? Those safeties are going to have to respect what Colby Young and London Humphreys can do down the field. So they're kind of cheating over to the boundary. And what I think Benjamin Yurosek comes in to do is attack that middle of the field, right? When you have two boundary receivers that can really work vertically, you're looking for Benjamin Yurosek to absolutely eat over the middle of the field. And I think that's exactly what he does. I'm really excited about this guy. I'm really excited for Benjamin Yurosek, a guy that I think is absolutely a stud. He stuck it out at Stanford for a couple really ugly years. Now he gets to go to a Georgia offense that, one, is led by a quarterback that's one of the best in the country, but more importantly, an offense that knows how to use the tight end position and knows how to use tight ends as difference makers. And there's not a lot of offenses that you can say do that. Perfect fit, really good player, fired up for this one. We'll talk about this more as spring practice and kind of getting into the summer. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, we'll keep you guys as updated as possible with what the Georgia Bulldogs are doing on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal, spring practice. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.